fully and completely, knowing that the balance was held, and the world was safe. He walked out of the apartment, leaving the machine in its silent, steady hum, and stepped out into the world, a man at peace with himself, with his purpose, and with the world he served. It was a perfect day, and he was ready for it. He was ready for everything. He was ready. As he walked down the street, he noticed the small things. A flower pushing through the cracks in the sidewalk, a child chasing a ball, a pair of old friends laughing over a shared memory. These were the things that mattered. These were the things that he was protecting. These were the things that made life worth living. He smiled, a genuine smile, and felt a deep, profound sense of joy. He knew that his work was never done, that there would always be more to do, more to learn, more to adjust. But he also knew that he had the time, he had the patience, and he had the dedication. He was a man who had found his path, and he was walking it with grace and purpose. He returned home that evening, refreshed and inspired. He looked at the machine again, feeling a sense of pride in the delicate, beautiful balance he had created. He sat down, opened his notebook, and began to write about his day, about the people he had seen, about the beauty he had witnessed, about the sense of wonder he had felt. He was documenting his life one day at a time, one adjustment at a time. He was a man who had found his purpose, a man who had found his peace, and a man who had found his place in the universe. And he was a man who was grateful for it all. He was a guardian of the balance, a protector of the people, a servant of the world. And he was quite simply happy. The night deepened, and the city lights twinkled like stars in the dark. He watched them for a while, feeling a deep connection to everything he saw. He was a part of the city, and the city was a part of him. He was a part of the world, and the world was a part of him. He was a part of the universe, and the universe was a part of him. And that was enough. He turned back to the machine, adjusted one last gear, and the hum seemed to grow a little bit louder, a little bit more vibrant. He knew that the balance was perfect. He knew that the world was safe. He knew that he was doing his job, and he was doing it well. He closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction. He was a man who had lived his life, and he was a man who had done his best. He was a man who was ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. He was a man who was at peace. And in the silence of the apartment, in the quiet hum of the machine, the world continued to spin, held together by the careful, deliberate, and loving touch of a man who had learned the secret of the universe, that everything mattered, that everything was connected, and that everything was, in the end, exactly as it was meant to be. He was the guardian of the balance, and he would be there, waiting, watching, and adjusting, for as long as the world needed him to be. And that was his story. That was his purpose. That was his life. And he would not have changed a single thing about it. It is with the focus of a professional storyteller that I offer this expanded, immersive novelization of your narrative. I have carefully woven the script into a cohesive, atmospheric prose piece, ensuring all numbers are written as words, all contractions are expanded, and the narrative remains seamless and focused on the emotional and thematic heart of the story. The city air was thick with the scent of uncollected garbage and the faint, persistent hum of a world that seemed to be vibrating just slightly off its axis. For Mr. Edgar Witherspoon, the world was not merely a collection of streets and buildings. It was a delicate, shivering mechanism that required constant, meticulous calibration. He stood in the corner of his dimly lit apartment, surrounded by a mountain of treasures that most would call refuse. A chrome coat hanger, 3 paper clips, and 1 solitary patent leather tap shoe were arranged on his workbench with the precision of a surgeon. His niece, a woman whose patience had been worn thin by years of worry, paced the halls of the building, wringing her hands. She had summoned help, for she could no longer bear the weight of her uncle's madness. She had called for a man of science, a man who dealt in the fragile workings of the human mind. She had called for Dr. Jeremy Sinclair. Dr. Sinclair was a man who prided himself on his logical, clinical detachment. He adjusted his glasses as he listened to the landlady, a woman whose complaints were as jagged and relentless as a broken glass. She told him of the trash, the strange objects, the way Mr. Witherspoon went through the garbage dumps, and the way the tenants suffered. She spoke of baseball cards and bicycle spokes, and she pointed toward the door that led to the apartment that nobody was allowed to enter. It was a fire trap, she insisted, a danger to them all. Dr. Sinclair nodded, his expression carefully neutral, though he felt a flicker of annoyance. He approached the door, intent on performing his duty. He knocked, but there was no answer. He knew the bell was disconnected. He could feel the absurdity of the situation pressing down on him, a heavy weight of trivialities that seemed far removed from the important matters of medicine. Then, the door creaked open, revealing the man himself. Mr. Edgar Witherspoon was a man of indeterminate age, with eyes that seemed to be looking at something just over the horizon. He did not seem surprised to see the doctor. In fact, he seemed almost disappointed that the conversation would have to be delayed. He was busy, he explained. He was looking for a doll head, specifically a blonde one, and he had exactly 5 minutes to find it before something terrible would happen to Santa Barbara. Dr. Sinclair, trained to handle delusions with grace, tried to steer the conversation back to the reality of the situation. He tried to explain that his niece was worried, that the neighbors were concerned. But Mr. Witherspoon was already gone, distracted by the singular, crushing urgency of his task. He needed a piece of a broken doll, and he needed it now. The doctor found himself caught in a tide of irrationality. He watched as the old man moved with a frantic, desperate energy. This was not the behavior of a simple eccentric. It was the behavior of a man who held the weight of the world upon his narrow shoulders. Sinclair tried to reason with him, but the logic of Mr. Witherspoon was built on a foundation that the doctor could not see. "You see a doll head here anywhere?" the old man asked, his voice sharp with focus. Dr. Sinclair looked around at the chaos. He saw the piles of junk, the disparate parts of 1,000 discarded lives, all being salvaged for some unknown purpose. He felt a sudden, inexplicable shiver. "Is that what you need?" the doctor asked, gesturing toward a pile of debris. "That is too big," Mr. Witherspoon muttered. "And it is a brunette. I need a blonde one. And I need it in 5 minutes. Do you want Santa Barbara to fall into the ocean?" "Stand aside, sir." Sinclair stood aside, watching in silence as the old man darted away. It was a bizarre, maddening encounter. When the doctor later spoke to the niece, he found himself defending the man he had just dismissed as a lunatic. He told her that Mr. Witherspoon seemed harmless, perhaps even happy. But the niece was not satisfied. She had seen the destruction of her own peace of mind, and she wanted action. The doctor promised to return. He wanted to understand. He wanted to pierce the veil of this madness. And so he went back, again and again, drawn by a gravity that he could not name. He forced his way into the apartment, refusing to be turned away. He demanded to know why a man would spend his retirement collecting paper clips and shoes. "I cannot afford Rembrandts," Mr. Witherspoon replied, a small, sad smile playing on his lips. It was then that the old man began to share his secret. He spoke of his days as an engineer, of the boredom that had driven him to the edge of despair, and of the voice that had come to him in the park. He spoke of Big Ben, and the pennies that balanced the pendulum, and how the world, in its own chaotic, noisy way, required similar adjustments. He believed that he was the caretaker of that balance, that by finding these small, seemingly insignificant objects, he was preventing the world from going, in his words, poof. Dr. Sinclair listened, his skepticism warring with a growing, cold realization. He thought of the